All right, you guys. I'm back on the screen. I realize you guys might be seeing a double image right now, and we're working on that. But it's just been my old streaming service, my old streaming software absolutely collapsed on me. I'm between systems right now. I actually have a new system coming in on Thursday for this very reason. So the old streaming software collapsed. I put a new one on. I realized that you might be seeing a double image, but it's okay. We're going to continue and we're going to persevere, okay? Now, I am not going to be able to see your chat right now, so that's not going to be happening, but go ahead and comment because I'm going to look at your chat afterwards. So I'm going to look at the chat, any questions you might have afterwards, so go ahead and put your chat into the side of the stream, all right, and I will look that over. And we're going to just continue to work with these hiccups. Again, I apologize, it was working earlier, and then it went down again, all right? But today is a big topic. So go ahead and take a seat, get comfortable, and I always encourage you, of course, to bring, a drink or a pen and paper if you want to take notes, all right? And we always begin with the beginner's mind. We begin in a very receptive state and with the beginner's mind. So let's go ahead and just come to a receptive state. And if the split screen is a little bit much for you right now, you can just simply listen. And that's always nice too, because then we're less, in the visuals, as I've mentioned in past streams, the visuals will sometimes connect to judgment or conclusions. And we're really, when we come to the beginner's mind, we're really coming to a place of perception, aren't we? The perception, the subtle energy experience, the receptivity channels are open. And perception is very intuitive, isn't it? Conceptualization, however, can become quite intellectual, quite heady. So that's one of the reasons I always say when we gather that we're coming to a place of conceptualization. I'm sorry, I take that back. Sorry. We're coming to a place of perception. We're coming to the beginner's mind. We're open to receive, to learn more. The process of conceptualization, on the other hand, is often a process that's fed by our judgments or our imprints from trauma. Okay? So we're going to start with the beginner's mind, as we always do. We start receptive. And, we just roll with some technical shifts. We keep working on it. That's what we do, right? If something, in fact, this is the theme of our live stream today. If something's happened to you in the past, rather than ruminating on it, or beating yourself up, or eating in on yourself with a harsh inner critic, we get up and we say, aha, I've learned from the past. Today is this day, and I will do my very best to align with the depths of my being today and onward. So we take the experiences of the past, including some things that have challenged us, things that perhaps we regret, and we take those experiences of the past and we get ourselves up, we dust ourselves off, and say, today is today. I've learned from the past, and I choose to align the very best I can with my authentic self. This week there has been a theme that's emerged in the sessions, and as you know, I often look for themes. a theme has emerged in the sessions, and that theme has been centered around the harsh inner critic. The harsh inner critic. So today we're going to look at the harsh inner critic. How does the harsh inner critic develop? And how do we treat with that harsh inner critic that continues to spend its time beating us up? Regrets, reminiscing, past actions that we have sorrow about. Okay? So the first thing we do with a harsh inner critic is recognize that the harsh inner critic is there. And it's okay. It's part of our humanity. It's so important on this journey to embrace the fullness of our humanity. Now that may seem something foreign to many of us who were raised in an environment where perhaps perfectionism was the theme, could never do it well enough, could never make the grade, get the position in the school club, whatever it was, on and on. If perfectionism was a theme in your family, chances are your harsh inner critic will be particularly prominent. The harsh inner critic will be particularly prominent. Okay. In addition, another quality of families of origin that enhance or make the harsh inner critic more prevalent is if you were loved in your family for doing, in other words, what you got done, how well you behaved, if you made the grade, rather than being. Now, we know that children who are honored for the beautiful little soul beings that they are, we know that children whose identity is encouraged and developed without the overlay of judgment or the helicoptering or controlling actions of parents, we know that this will be prominent in the harsh inner critic will be more prominent. And I want to mention right now, I just got a text from a very active member of our community. I'll turn my text on after this. She's wondering if we have the live stream today. So I am going to encourage her to jump on because I realize that this is not on the link. It's not on the typical link. So I'm going to encourage her to jump on right now and tell her yes, go to the channel instead. Okay. And then I'm going to get off, and then we're going to continue, steadily continue. Okay? So this harsh inner critic, again, will be enhanced if you were in an environment that stressed perfectionism, being perfect, and or if you were in an environment where doing was emphasized over simply being your wonderful, enthusiastic child self with all your unique skills and your unique talents and the things that make you you, right? Rather than being the extension of the parents' neediness or the parents' desires of what they thought was perfect based on their own imprints, okay? So the harsh inner critic will be enhanced. Again, that was just one of our members of the community, and she said the screen's funky, but it's okay. So I appreciate that feedback. So hang with the screen, okay, you guys, hang with the screen. And I know we're still working on those technical difficulties, all right? So with this harsh inner critic, again, that's enhanced those two ways. All right? And the first thing we want to do is recognize it's there. The harsh inner critic is present. It's there. I don't deny you. I see you. And today, we're going to call out the harsh inner critic. Come on out. And we're going to place the little harsh inner critic on our shoulders. Hi, little harsh inner critic. I see you. You can even let the harsh inner critic swing his or her legs on your shoulders, perched up there on your shoulder, and say, hey, harsh inner critic, I see that you have some black and blue pom-poms, and you've really liked to beat me up in the past, but hey, I got you. Here you are, perched on my shoulder today. And the black and blue pom-poms, right, with the bruises that they create, it's like, it's okay, I see you up there. So the first thing we want to do is call out the harsh inner critic, not in admonishment. Just say, I see you're in there. I know you're in there. And I know that you're an extension of imprints, right? You live, in other words, the harsh inner critic, the life of the harsh inner critic was birthed or given through the imprints of perfectionism. An imprint laid down upon you, you weren't enough, you weren't good enough, it was never enough. That's how the harsh inner critic was born. Whoa. That's the source. Or, if you were in a family that just loved you for doing, right? The harsh inner critic, you could never do enough, could you? So the harsh inner critic was born from that imprint. And it's an imprint that's laid down at a very, very early age. And of course, that harsh inner critic feeds together with a sense of low self-worth. And that's why it's so much to hold. The harsh inner critic is so much to hold because you're trying to prove that you're worthy, right? You have low self-worth going on over here. You're trying to prove that you're worthy, and the perfectionism and the harsh inner critic, on and they go, and the split will feel greater and greater and greater until we're just like, I cannot bear this anymore. And it's really a deeply achy experience. Divisive experience, extremely divisive experience. And that's why we're looking at the harsh inner critic today and saying, hey, I know how you were born. I know where you came from. And today, you're perched on my shoulder. And I know, dear harsh inner critic, that you got some messages when you were younger that you needed to be there in order to please a caregiver, to please a parent, in order to show that caregiver who was insatiable, in other words, could never have been pleased, right? That you're lovable. It's connected to that. It's connected to always trying to show the caregiver, the parent, that, see, I am lovable. See, I am lovable. See, I know one day it's going to be enough. I know one day it's going to be enough. And of course, you know where perfectionism leads. It's a dead end, isn't it? Until we suffer so much, the harsh inner critic comes up with such force. The suffering becomes so great that we cannot hold the conflict, low self-worth, perfectionism, suffering. We cannot handle this cacophony any longer. And the facade starts to break, starts to crack, so that new information can come in. Ah, that's how this works. Interesting. Isn't it, harsh inner critic? Interesting. And the harsh inner critic goes, wait a minute, you mean I'm not in charge? The harsh inner critic says, but I've been in charge. I've driven you into the ground in past. I've had my black and blue pom-poms. And, and they've created a lot of bruises. You say, oh, harsh inner critic. It's okay. I see you. We're diffusing your heightened sense of urgency, right? Perfectionism. Harsh inner critic will feel very urgent. Let's take a breath, everybody. Let's take a breath. And again, I want to mention the chat. I can't see the chat right now, but I was dedicated, like I said, in the last live stream. I won't let you guys down. We're going to do a live stream. It's just a tech glitch. That's okay. New systems coming in. It'll be all spick and span. Okay? So just know I'll do everything I can to get on a live stream with you guys. And again, I can't see the chat today, but I will look at it afterwards, okay? Promise. So keep chat coming. Keep your questions coming. Okay? Hope the chat's on, by the way. Okay, so take a big in-breath and a long, luxurious out-breath. And with your harsh inner critic that's sitting on your shoulder, if you feel into your harsh inner critic, don't think it. Don't think it. But as you feel into your harsh inner critic, can you feel there's an agony to the harsh inner critic, like a deep, deep ache, an achiness that lives in the harsh inner critic? It's so much to hold up the expectations of others, of parents, of caregivers. What a burden a little child bears. What a burden you've perhaps bared. Have you bared that burden? It's so achy to try to hold up the expectations of caregivers. All those expectations, the perfectionism placed on you when you were a young one. Oh my gosh, can you imagine doing that to a child? I know you can't because you're on this channel. Placing the burdens of perfectionism, expectation, do as I say on a dear, dear child on you. What an ache. How heavy. How sad. So that harsh inner critic that's been with you, the burden that has been carried is great. That burden that the harsh inner critic, the load that he or she has carried, has been so great. And as we feel through that burden and the absolutely devastating effects, environment, a caregiver, a parents will create when they pass their own sense of lack onward to a child, expecting the child to be perfect, that load that's carried onward is heavy. And that's why the harsh inner critic will feel just weighty, weighty, weighty. Okay? Remember, today we've called him or her out, perched on the shoulders, swing the legs. We see those black and blue pom-poms. I love you, dear harsh inner critic, and I see your burden. I see your burden. And I see how unrealistic it is for caregivers, for parents, to place that burden on the child. I'm not saying to overly empathize. I'm not saying that. The actions of parents and caregivers who expect perfectionism, parents who are controlling, who love you for doing rather than being, those are hurtful actions. Full stop. I'm just saying, understand your harsh inner critic so that he or she can rest a bit. Go ahead and breathe. Exhale out any old messages, old, early messages. The stuff at the end. Exhale out those messages of expectation, of perfectionism, of I just love you for what you're doing. Did you make the grade? Did you do this? Da-da-da-da-da-da, on and on and on. Exhale out all those early messages, all of them. Just like let them go. Harsh inner critic's right there with you right now, on the shoulder. Breathe. And as the density, the coarseness of the harsh inner critic settles, we come back to this state of receptivity, of openness, of the beginner's mind. This is our touchstone. This is our truth. So we undulate, we'll undulate, wax and wane, expand and contract. We'll have a day when we feel the harsh inner critic and we acknowledge the harsh inner critic and we recognize how the harsh inner critic was born, from what imprints the harsh inner critic came. Where did the harsh inner critic? We recognize this, right? And there are days when we feel contracted around the harsh inner critic, but then by doing the process we do in our community on this channel, we also recognize that the touchstone is receptivity, openness, beginner's mind, pure mind, warm heart, pure mind, warm heart. That's where we come home to. Have I made that clear in the previous live streams? I hope so. I hope you've tasted that. This is our home. The truth of our being. This is where we come back to time and time again. And I want to share something that's very important. When you get into the dust of the harsh inner critic, it's just like that part of your being is just asking to be clear. That's all you're doing. You're not on autopilot anymore. That's amazing. You see the harsh inner critic and you say, this doesn't work for me anymore. It doesn't. So when we bring the harsh inner critic here with us, when we feel the experience, it's like you're dusting out that corner of the house. And you dust it out. And you're doing it. We're doing it together. And then we come back. We come back home to the truth of our being. Right? Remember this guy over here? Whoops. I'm trying to get it on the screen. There we go. Remember this guy over here? The remover of obstacles? That's done through receptivity, through openness, through the beginner's mind. Not vacuous mind. A curious mind. A curious mind. Which leads me to my next point. How do we know if we're being driven by the harsh inner critic? Or how do we know, how do we distinguish when we're being driven by a deeper desire. Because we don't become pablum on this journey, do we? So do you know in the last live stream how I mentioned this discriminatory power of your mind, how we have to bring that along on this journey? It's so important, especially for those of us who've experienced childhood adversity, childhood trauma. The discriminatory power of your mind, the discerning power. So this is a good way to discern between being driven by a harsh inner critic or being truly fueled by your innate desire to reclaim your freedom. So when we're being driven by a harsh inner critic, it can feel relentless. There will be a sense of lack, a sense of, I really am not good enough. It's never good enough. I'm constantly going on, and you'll get one thing, and the harsh inner critic a little bit later will say, that's not enough. Like, who do you think you are? And on you go, and on you go, and on you go. You could get, just as a basic example, a new car, but it's never good enough, and it's on and on and on and on and on. And somewhere in there, you're driven by a sense of lack, a sense of neediness, a sense of, like, whoa. Or domination. Some people are actually driven by greed, aren't they? Now, as it relates to trauma, the harsh inner critic can feel diminishing. And that keeps us in a position of being not empowered. We will feel powerless when we are driven by the harsh inner critic. It will sometimes feel frenetic. It will sometimes feel not good enough ever, like as you're even doing it. So the harsh inner critic will have a feeling of being a feeling of lack underneath it all, and a feeling of never good enough, and a feeling of diminishment. In other words, you become less empowered. The more you connect with your harsh inner critic, the less authentically empowered you become. Okay? If you're connecting, on the other hand, with your innate, built-in desire to connect with a deeper part of yourself, to connect with your North Star, your authenticity, there will be a sense of evenness in that connection, a sense of opening. You may not know the way, that's okay. But underneath, there will be a sense of this is the way to go. A knowing, a contentment, even in challenging situations. A sense of fullness. That, oh, this feels intuitively spot on to me. It feels intuitively like I just have to go this direction. Even if people around you are saying, why are you going that direction? You'll just say, oh, because I know I must. Because I know I must. And there will also be a sense of upliftment. So by you using the discriminatory power of your mind to know when is the harsh inner critic driving me, or when am I being magnetically called to a deeper experience, when am I following my evolutionary nature, by you knowing those different qualities, that will help the pace quicken, and your mind is honored as the beautiful, discerning mind it is. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Dear harsh inner critic, perched on our shoulder today. It's okay. You get to take a rest. You get to put down the black and blue pom-poms. Yeah. On that note, it's good to be with you. Even if the screen's a little wonky, I don't care. We're all together again. Okay? All right, let's take a sweet little journey where we're going to let the harsh inner critic rest a little bit more. Really rest. He or she has done her tour of duty, and it has been a tour of duty, by the way. It's complete. All right. You can lay down. We're going to do just a brief centering here, a very brief centering. So in other words, give it your all. Dive deep. Open the channels of receptivity more and more. And if you're laying down, go ahead and put a blanket underneath your knees or a pillow. If you're in a seated position, please take your hands palms up in a seated position. And let's close the eyes and just take a moment to marvel at the journey, at your soul journey. All that you've learned to date, all that has brought you to this moment, this very moment. Just take a moment to be so receptive and open that you are in awe of the fullness of this journey. Amazing how this journey of evolution works. With the eyes closed, smile. And don't think your smile, feel your smile. Feel the smile. Feel it. And feel everyone else in our community smiling with you. Can you feel the upliftment of that smile? Take the support of everyone in this community who is sweetly bringing the harsh inner critic to rest, and who everyone in the community together, we're in the upliftment of a smile from the inside out. The heart is smiling. The cells are smiling. Because there is a triumphant sense, a triumphant completion as the harsh inner critic rests. There is a triumphantness, a completion, yes, a victory, as the harsh inner critic completes its journey. There's a smile that illumines all the cells. There's a sense of, I have climbed the mountain, and I now see the great vista. Dear harsh inner critic, I've learned, and that's the most I can possibly do, is learn from you, learn from your teachings, learn from those moments of struggle. We have done that. Soften a little bit more. And as you soften, and as those old messages leave on the exhale, feel a triumphant sense of victory arise, an inclusive victory that includes everyone on our channel, everyone in this community. That we have risen above that gravitational pull that almost sucked us down, but we got our head above water. We breathed. And now, today is the day the harsh inner critic completes the tour. And we stand together, our entire community, atop the vista of that mountain, where we can see more clearly, where we're not as caught in the old imprints, in the coarseness of consciousness, and we can breathe the fresh, beautiful air and the purity, and we can connect with the hearts and beings of the animals and the insects and the birds and the bright beings, especially on this channel, but also other people just like us across the planet. We're in this vista now. Breathe and receive pure air, a pureness. The tour of the harsh inner critic is complete. And we know our touchstone. We know where to come home to now. We no longer go home to the confusion, to the heavy burdens. That's not our home anymore. Through this journey of our live streams, we are clear of our touchstone, of our true home, our true north. We're clear that this is our home. I am that I am. I, the great I, am that, and that I am, the great I, the inclusive I, the oneness of the I. Breathe. Smile a little bit more, become even a little bit more receptive, like do a little rocket boost of smiling from the inside out. And that goes along with your receptivity. The more you're receptive, the more you feel that rocket boost of smiles from the inside out, of warmth, a sense of joy. Ananda, it's called. Beautiful. All right, very, very sweetly, with ease, keeping resonance here, taking your place. This is your place. Own it. Very sweetly open your eyes, or if you've laid down, you can push yourself up with your arms and come back to a seated position, and we're going to slowly open our eyes again. Heart smiling across everyone, for everyone in our community. Smiles from the inside out. That little harsh inner critic completed its tour today. I'm sending all my love and support to you. And I will see you on Thursday, and I always promise, despite any technical difficulties, I got you back. I'm going to be here. Okay? I'm going to be here. And hopefully my new system will help clear all this up too. But what a journey we took today, and what a journey we took together. I will see you Thursday at this time. And in the meantime, I'm sending all my love and all my support, you beautiful, bright being. You, beautiful, bright being. See you Thursday.